beaten track to find solutions. The Nissan Sugarbelt 400 moved back to the outskirts of Pietermaritzburg, the capital of KwaZulu-Natal. Just outside the hustle of the city centre lies Eston in the heart of the sugarcane fields. And it was here that round 3 of the 08 ABSA Off-Road Championship was scheduled to get underway.
It's a race that is known for a great and testing layout, which asks man and machine all the tough questions about technique as well as reliability all in one.
Ford were racing in their own backyard, as it were, and were penciled in as one of the pre-race favourites.
Cronje and Birken again stole the show in the prologue, and at the start of the day's 400-odd Ks of racing, it was time to saddle up and hit the road.
And just a minute behind them, allowing for dust gaps, it was Foss and Pitchford who needed to get back to their winning ways.
But Cronje and Birken were looking for 2 wins on the trot and were soon into their stride again after their PE victory.
But drama for them. They'd done one of their tyres a mishap and had to stop and change. While Grobler knew the pressure was on, and the 51-year-old celebrating his 31st year in motorsport had to produce in a hurry. Uncharacteristically, he had no wins to show after 2 races.
Under leaden and darkening sky, Schultheimer directed Woolridge around the early parts of the first loop, and the Ranger was sounding great, and the local knowledge wasn't hurting either.
Ivar Tollefson and his standing co-driver Francois Jordan came into their own halfway through the day and started whittling away at the lead.
The Mickelin XL dealer Team Toyota of the De Bruins was up into the top 5 and making a real fist of it too.
With Visser and Badenhorst in the second, Castrol Toyota hot on their wheels and pushing hard.
The next SP car interview was that of Mark Ferguson and Craig West in the second Ford Ranger.
And up ahead, that was Grobler and Moore off the road.
They had broken a lower ball joint after hitting a rock.
In Class D, the super steady race Sonic's outfit was still 19 seconds ahead of the competition after the first 10 Ks worth of racing.
And in Class E, Jack Peckham and Lucio Santoro were setting the pace and still at almost 5 minutes over their nearest competitors.
But there was no doubt about it. Foss and Pitchford were having a banner day and enjoying treating the fans to the spectacle of the Flying Navara.
With the local lads, Woolridge and Schultheimer slotting into second after also going by Cronje and then the stricken Grobler.
Into the more mountainous terrain, and here's where Ivar Tollefson and his stand-in co-Jordan definitely came into their own.
While Cronje and Birken were holding on for dear life.
And almost missed a vital road marking right there.
Yeah, but fortunately spotted it in time.
The Mickelin XL dealer team of the father and son, Yigo and Jaap de Bruin, were now flying and closing gaps on just about everyone up ahead.
With Cox himself in a very uncompromising move, working his way back in the motorite entry after having to repair a flat early on.
Visser and Badenhorst were again very smooth and consistent and had an eye on a top 5.
While Ferguson and West were closing down a special in front of them when the world took a nosedive.
Track star Anthony Taylor had made the move to off-roading, and he and Robin Houghton then rolled it themselves, not once, but twice. Still, they went on to record a finish on their maiden voyage.
Ferguson and West in 7th place also got it back on its paws and steamed on towards the finish line at Eston.
It had rained the night before and some parts of the route was rather slippery and mushy, but the Race Sonics team hardly noticed as they steamed on.
With defending Class E champions Peckham and Santoro, who had jumped a massive 9 places overall and were just 66 seconds ahead in Class E.
With Cliff Weichelt and Jimmy Goff all over the back of them, trying to get closer to the lead in Class D.
The Zermattens, meanwhile, wanted to help Jaco Swanepoel, but a bulky drive shaft would not allow them.
Visser and LaRue were running the roost in Class E, looking for their second win of the season.
After the West Loop was completed, it was Foss and Pitchford enjoying a well-deserved 4-minute gap.
And that was over the hometown boys, Woolwich and Schulthammer, who admitted to some tentative driving early on, but were now throwing caution to the wind in the Ford Ranger almost 5 minutes back.
With Cronier and Birkin producing a great fight back after dropping down to 5th before their fuel pressure problem cured itself.
And in 4th it was Cox and Testego who had also decided to just go hell for leather.
The De Bruyn's head into our viewfinder next, giving the Mickelin XL dealer Team SP a full go on the Western Loop.
And in the drier conditions, the Parkhazens, George and Schoen were starting to come into their own and were flying along.
Visser and Badenhorst were desperately trying to pick up a few places after a flat, and were indeed doing just that.
Tollefson and Jordan were way down in 32nd overall after losing their wrestle with a tree and were trying to get back into the top 10.
And Ferguson and West, who lost a windscreen, got some first-hand experience of what it would be like to take a special for a spin. Dust, dust, and more dust.
Staying with forward, Fontonda and Glopper were quick in between the sugarcane.
And with their double rolls damaged clear to see, Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were nursing their Toyota back to the paddock, but still going quickly at the same time. They were in 9th.
And in Class E, young Visser and Yorks LaRue in their highlights were just more than 10 minutes worth of breathing space.
Over this crew, Jack Peckham and Lucia Santora in the Ford Ranger, who had slipped a few places on the run-in to the line.
And in Class E, the 3rd place was taken by Jubilant Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Mega World entry.
With Class D's Lois Kachny and Gerber, who had no equals and were almost half an hour ahead of their nearest challengers.
And they were Christian de Vlooy and Henk van Vieren in the black and orange Hilux.
Hannes Grobler with Johan Moore kept plugging away to score some valuable and desperately needed championship points in the Nissan.
But it was a truly superb drive from Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford at his usual pinpoint accurate self. A 6-minute victory for the Nissan Navara crew and a 2nd win in 3 races.
The production car winner, a clear 6-minute win for the Nissan pairing. And that makes it 2 for the Japanese manufacturer. But there were 4 Toyotas in the top 10, giving them the manufacturer's award.
That big victory gave Foss the lead in his championship defense by 6 points. It was all pointing towards a huge dogfight, with Woolwich and Cronier and Hannes Grobler lurking back there as well.
Round 4 of the ABSA Off-Road Championship, Gaborone, Botswana. The desert in all its splendor.
The Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race.
It included a racing section for quads and bikes. Up ahead for the teams was a dusty, sandy 250k run to the first designated service point at Hatsa-Latladli, where there was a scheduled 15-minute decontrol, and then the ride home, which would skirt the Central Kalahari Game Reserve.
A 2nd consecutive prologue win meant no dust for the De Bruyn's in the Mickelin. And the Toyota led the procession of 59 cars from the start on day 2.
With Anthony Taylor, a national track champion, who was delighted with his 3rd place off the line in the Castrol Toyota.
And Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in a similar Hilux 3rd off the line in the SP class.
The De Bruyn's clearly meant business and were aggressive from the flag dropping.
Castrol Toyota's Anthony Taylor, applying all the pressure, was flying after the opening Ks.
He had his hands full trying to hold off Visser and Badenhorst, who had to sort out an exhaust valve after the prologue, but had everything looking and sounding great afterwards.
The Kalahari bush is dense and it's very penal, and the temperature was rising steadily too. But Foss and Weigelt were laying down the law and going quickly.
But the pace setters up front was still the Mickelin XL dealer team of father and son Jaap and Hugo de Bruyn, who were doing some low-level flying.
With Cox in the Motorrad SP recovering well after a puncture on the way to the first DSP after 140 Ks.
But then, a surprise at the front. Visser and Badenhorst had taken the lead after the Bruins had had a coming together with some fauna and flora.
And that That gave the Toyota faithful lots to wave their flags about.
But it left Nissan chasing. But in the desert, that's sometimes not a bad strategy. Voss keeping his distance.
With Taylor and Houghton, who were simply superb in only their second outing together in the Castrol Toyota, the two-time Formula V national champ was slotting right in.
And Cox trying to keep contact with the SPs in front of him.
Woolridge and Schulthammer also did some giant killing, and it snagged a bag full of places back after their puncture.
While Cronier clearly had an altercation with Matter made of some very solid nature. They had hit someone from behind and also had niggles with the clutch.
But you need focus in this business, and Nissan were coming at them. Krogler was also blasting up the batting order and overtaking left, right and centre. He clocked the fastest split for the first 500 Ks.
Henry and Marisa Matten in the Ryobi Nissan hold the world record for the most consecutive finishes, and they handsomely led Class D.
And in the same class, Labuschagne and Kutsia hold on in the Raysonics Nissan for a hard-fought second, 10 minutes ahead of third.
To Class E now, and Peckham and Santoro were driving like men possessed and set the pace with controlled aggression.
But it was tough out there, though.
Just less than 70% of the field saw the finish line of day 2 in one piece, a typically tough desert race in uncompromising conditions. They were led home by force.
But the drive of the day, Marc Cronier raised the host's hopes with a superb showing on the second loop after DSP, and that left him in the lead by a scant 17 seconds from 12th to first. A brilliant run.
Day 2, and Cronier was away with all the pressure of leading the longest race on the ABS Off-Road Championship calendar. A tense final day lay ahead with 400 Ks of racing to be negotiated.
The Rudaport kitchen builder knew that he would have his work cut out for him.
Voss hit the road next. The defending national champion would rely heavily on his legendary fitness and stamina on the final day. He was looking for win number 3 of the season.
Cronier, reigning national rally champion with Birkin, had it going sideways in typical track style and started off like he had a flight to catch.
And don't think that Woolridge and Schulthammer were not following the same flight pattern. The Ford has been getting quicker with each outing. Botswana was no exception.
With the old warhorse Hannes Grobler back on the warpath, he lost 30 minutes on day 1 but was taking them back one by one.
Taylor and Houghton followed next. Their highlights was looking and sounding great, despite more than 600 Ks worth of racing on the clock in the desert.
Cox, with former national champion Henny Kirstein at his side, was quick, but according to Alfie, he wanted more speed from the Motorite SP.
With the Barkhuizens going very quickly in the Bloemfontein-based Rubicon SP, they were up from 15th place and mowing down the opposition one by one.
And in Class D, the front runners, the Zermattens, had extended their lead over the Raysonics boys by vital minutes, which gave them some breathing space.
But there was only leaving space for Visser and Badenhorst. After 800 Ks, it had come to this. They had hit a tree and the Hilux couldn't be repaired.
With a modified and lighter Raysonics Nissan hardbody in second in Class D. Now, however, they were 17 minutes down.
But Toyota was still smiling broadly as Class E leaders Yanni Visser and Joks Leroux came barging and bustling by. They had a 20-minute lead.
With Jack Peckham and Lucio Santoro setting quick times in pursuit in their diesel Ford Ranger.
But there was loads of pressure. Diervold van Breda and Johan de Tooy were closing down on them at a rate of knots.
Up front, though, it was two-time winner Duncan Voss and his young navigator Louis Weichelt, who were being hunted by a gaggle of very special production car class racers. They could not afford to make a mistake.
But there was still the small matter of the final 200 Ks ahead.
And Cronier and Birkin knew that they would have to bide their time, be patient and wait for the right moment. They let Voss through to see if he would falter.
Woolridge has won here in Botswana 3 times, twice with Schulthammer, and their experience and the solid reliability of the Ford Ranger made them a solid bet to come through as well.
A flying Krobler caught up 5 or 6 minutes, and the former national rally champ was putting together a great run.
Meanwhile, Taylor was doing an unbelievable job in the second Toyota. The multiple track champion calmly slotted into the role of off-road racer with great ease.
And with Houghton at his side, he could hardly miss. The Balkhuizens were producing their best drive of the season too, up 8 places from where they started after the prologue.
With the IDM Cement boys, who are rock solid 7th in the SP class.
And Van Tonde and Kopa going as hard as they could on the straights.
Yeah, well, if the donkey would allow them that.
Close. The brothers Matten brought the Rovi Nissan home in 9th, easily winning Class D for the 2nd consecutive year in the Kalahari Desert.
And victory for the Team Barbaspan's Yanni Visser and Joks Leroux, 20 minutes ahead. After 5 second places here, it was finally a win for Yanni.
Second in Class D, going to the Raconics team of Gutsiala Vaskachny and Johan Gerber in their hard body, which had seen better days.
And they were almost 10 minutes ahead of Chris Deploy and Henk Janssen van Vuren in their RFS Toyota.
And in Class E, a race-long battle was wrapped up when Diebold van Breda and Johan de Toy brought her home 20 minutes behind in 2nd.
With the early leaders, Peckham and Santoro in the Ford, who had set the pace for more than 900 Ks, having to settle for 3rd.
Back in Gaborone, though, it was Duncan Voss and Louis Weichelt in a flying Sassel Nissan Navara, a 3rd victory in 4 races, and this one over 1,000 kilometers added another vital 25 points to an already impressive championship tally.
Cronje and Birken flattered 60 Ks out, and then to compound matters, lost the rear brakes, so they consolidated by just getting it to the finish line. A wise decision in the championship race.
At the halfway mark of the 08 ABSA Off-Road Championship log, Voss with a slender but vital 16-point lead, but the Ford Dio will be keeping an eye on Cronje and the other on Grobler.
A 3rd win of the season gives Visser and Leroux the lead in the Class E battle ahead of Peckham and Santoro.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.